So happy Friday. So, Jasmine, where are you in the rainforest?
This is the bamboo forest in Kyoto, Japan.
Wow, that's beautiful. That looks really cool.
Yeah.
Bamboo grows fast, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's a grass. So yeah.
That's cool. I love bamboo. I love the look of it and I love the sound of it, like on chimes and things like
Mhm,
that. So
mhm.
that is a great background. So I got a fan in my background. That's pretty exciting, but also very necessary. I have three of them in here just because, when you're, drumming, it's a workout. So it's good to have a fan. So that's pretty exciting. You can kind of see some other stuff. So today I'm wearing the cat Christmas shirt. I know it's a little early, but the reason I'm wearing it is after this, later today, I have a live senior class where we're going to do, with the Boomwhackers, we're going to do the Christmas carols, kind of like we did. And I don't know, were you there during that? Okay. But it was very fun, and so it should be interesting. This is a higher level group, and they want a challenge, and so I'm like, okay, next time I'm bringing boom whackers, and I actually have music, and it's color coded. So if they have like orange or whatever color, let's say they have a C and a D, they have an orange and a yellow. The music is real big. I blew it up, and it's color coded so they can play like jingle bells and things like that. So it should be really fun. I might videotape some of it just because this group, they just laugh the whole time. They just have really a good time. So I figured, hey, I got to wear my Christmas outfit because this is kind of like our Christmas meeting. So the Bears. Okay, so the Bears. Let's see. Now here we go. I'll do the big bear first. So this is one of the outfits I got at PetSmart after Halloween. He's actually, poor guy, he's actually an elephant. So this is his trunk and his little tusks here. And I guess these are supposed to be his front legs, but I tried to put his little paws in here and it just looked kind of funny. So I was like, this is the ugliest, I think, elephant outfit, Halloween outfit I've ever seen. And then on his back, I guess he must be in the circus or something. So poor guy. I mean, I feel bad for him. I got to take him out of this get up. But anyway, that was somebody wanted their dog to be an elephant. So there he is. And going along with that theme, and this I have to kind of look up because I know the movie, but I didn't recognize, like, if I just saw this outfit, I wouldn't immediately, if some little kid rang my doorbell or little dog came to the door on Halloween, I wouldn't know who they are. But when I looked it up, I'm like, oh, yeah, that is that costume. So I'm going to let you guess. Do you know who he is supposed to be? I know, I didn't either. He's got this kind of flowered shirt. Well, I'm going to give you a hint. So it's a movie. It's a movie about candy, and it's a long time ago. It's still played. They have Oompa Loompas.
Well, he's supposed to be somebody out of Willy Wonka.
He's supposed to be Willy Wonka. Yeah, and at first I was like, I don't remember Willy Wonka wearing that outfit. But when you look him up, and we should look him up, he actually wore something like this. I don't remember the hat, I don't remember the shirt, maybe the purple outfit, but anyway, I wouldn't know who he is, but he's supposed to be Willy Wonka. So we got Willy Wonka and the elephant today as
Huh,
our um
I
as
would
our
never guess that since your bear is infinitely cuter than Willy Wonka, the actor who played Willy Wonka.
yeah. So I know. So pretty funny. Okay, so well, today is part two of concert tickets, autographs, and pictures. So I'm going to share my screen, and this is where we left off. Let's see here. Messy screen. We had just finished with Robert Goulet, and now Sammy Davis. So back in, gosh, Sammy's been gone a long time, but when I was a kid, over here on this ticket, 1982, I was not quite a kid, but actually I got to perform. My band, one of the groups I was with, opened for him and this was like a hospital, I guess what was it? It was some kind of a benefit concert. And anyway, the band I was playing with was a Dixieland band, and we had these little Dixieland outfits, and it was a pretty big band. It was a brass band, a Dixieland brass band. I was the drummer. We did tons of polkas and Dixie music, and we were in some little, as I recall, we were inside, but it was like a gazebo. We were like in an auditorium, but they put us in a gazebo, so you felt like you were outside in this little gazebo. But anyway, Sammy Davis, I got to open for Sammy Davis, so that was cool. I don't think I met him or got his autograph, but I did. Well, maybe we saw him. Yeah, well, we did see him and wave at him or whatever. So, and he was like, oh, he liked our band. So he talked about us because we opened for him. So anyway, Sammy Davis Jr. Moving on, you just don't know who's going to be next. So this was fun for me. I had this little slip of paper that says, Karen, thanks for coming out to see us. We love you guys. Charlie, and I always thought it was Charlie Bishop. So, and I knew he played this electric violin. So anyway, a couple weeks ago when I was putting this together, I'm like, I gotta figure out who Charlie Bishop is. Like what group did I see? I know it was at Red Rocks. I know approximately when it was. He actually came out in the audience and was playing in my little group of friends. And he played, he was all around the audience doing that. So I remember the concert. I remembered him. So I finally kept looking it up, and I finally figured, I went to the Red Rocks site, and I looked at the years I would have been going to concerts, and I was like, oh, SHADOWFAX. I remember going to that concert, but I have forgotten way about them. And I started, well, who's in SHADOWFAX? So I started looking up the names, and it's not Charlie Bishop. It's Charlie BISHARAT, I guess is how you say his name. And that, when I look at the autograph, I'm like, well, sure, that's of course what it was. But, I just didn't know. So I look him up. This is what he looks like more recently. And I actually remember the guy. I recognize him and everything. And then when I look back at this picture, I definitely, this is him here. And I do remember that very vividly. So anyway, good thing I saved this slip of paper. It put me on a little mystery sleuthing. I've had fun, going back and researching. And, they didn't really stay together all that long, which was unfortunate because I remember I really liked their music. So, and he had this amazing, fusion of classical but yet electronic sound. And anyway, I'm going to have to go back and listen to them again. So here you go. David Sanborn, of course, one of my favorites. I saw him a bunch of times. Here's just a couple of them. This one is at, looks like in Denver. Oh gosh, the ticket price was only $24. The other one is $17. Looks like one of these was, Red Rocks, or they both look like they were Red Rocks. I will never forget the very first time I heard David Sanborn. I was in high school, and our music director, we were like a little gang, me and my music people. And every morning when we'd get to school early, the bus would sometimes get us there early. Everybody would congregate in the music room. And our director would always have cool songs on and pretty loud. You walk in first thing in the morning and it's just like there's a concert going on. And I will never forget the very first David Sanborn song I heard was Duck Ankles. And it's got this funky sound to it. It sounds like duck ankles, it's like a great sound. And we all got turned on to David Sanborn. And that was the cool thing about our music director, who, I should give him a shout out. Ross McClure, my very favorite teacher of all time, still around. As far as I know, I had coffee with him, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, and I really need to find him. But he, all the kids that were in my group went on to do a lot of things. Most everybody's still playing, and it was such a huge impact on our life. He took us to great music festivals that we got to, open for Maynard Ferguson and go to Las Vegas and go to all these really great places. And back then kids didn't get to do that sort of thing, get on a bus and go to Wichita Jazz Festival or whatever. But anyway, so David Sanborn's always been one of mine favorites. Although now he's not really putting out that much. It's always, they start doing the best of albums and you're just like, oh, I need something new. So I also saw David Sanborn in Atlanta in about 1989. And look at this on the ticket, front row center. I was in the front row center, and I'm pretty sure this is the year that Sonny Emery, who's we've talked about before, or he's coming up, is a drummer from Atlanta, and he played with Earth, Wind, and Fire. He also played with David Sanborn. He did an amazing solo during this concert where he was taking sticks and he would put it in his mouth. So he'd like put one in his mouth and then he'd take that one out of his mouth and put the other one in, and it looked like this. And it was like basically he'd put a stick in his mouth and then meanwhile he's playing like all this amazing stuff. And so he must have, gosh, I would have busted my teeth out trying that trick. But he would put it in his mouth and then somehow he would grab it and it was like this. It looked like this. But he was like playing. Anyway, that was pretty awesome to see when you're sitting front row center. And also during this, oh, here's Sonny right here. Here's a picture of him, more recent picture. I got to see him fairly recently in Atlanta, probably a year or two ago with his band at a small little club in Tucker. And anyway, here's David Sanborn's signature. I got it later, not at this particular concert. I got it at another thing. And he was there with Brenda Russell, who is a vocalist, also jazz vocalist. And I saw him a number of other times. These are just the tickets I saved, but I saw him probably 5 more other times. Here's Sonny Emery. So here's this is probably my business card, probably all I had at the time. To Karen, best wishes, Sonny Emery. And this is just kind of showing him, this one's a more recent one, but he's a great drummer. Went to a clinic of his where he did this thing with his feet, where on the left foot he would get a clave going, so ba 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 ba, and then he would solo over it. And just to get that kind of like on autopilot and then just be doing all this other amazing stuff with his other limbs was impressive. He also took lessons from some of the Jack Bell, who was a very famous percussionist who was with the Atlanta Symphony for many, many years. So Sonny had the classical-ish training, and he also has just got a great groove and is great to listen to. And he's a great soloist and fun to watch and seems like just a really nice guy. SPYRO GYRA, another one of my bands that I loved and I've talked about. This particular concert, sorry, I have to keep putting this down so I can read the ticket. 1982, this was at Red Rocks, and he was there with B.B. King. Oh my gosh. B.B. King and SPYRO GYRA on stage, not exactly at the same time, but one and then the other. They might have had an overlap song or two. And then this is the album, one of the more famous ones. They always had fun, cool looking, just like Earth, Wind, and Fire, always had these really fun, cool album covers that were just, I would sit there and read every word on the album. Like whenever I would get an album, I would look at it, I would read it, I would pull out the sheet and who was drumming on it and who was playing bass on it. And anyway, I enjoyed their album covers and their music was awesome. Here's another SPYRO GYRA, more recent one. I think it's more recent. Well, yeah, it was in Atlanta, 93. And I saw them a whole bunch of other times. Anytime they were anywhere nearby, I would see them. And Dave Samuels, who is their percussionist, he's the one who plays all the marimba stuff. Got to meet him at a PASIC conference. Super quiet, reserved guy, didn't say too much, but he took a picture with me and signed an autograph. And You know, he was probably trying to be incognito at the conference, but I recognized him. I knew who he was, and that's a blurry picture because I was back in the day before digital cameras. It was just a regular camera, and then I had to take a picture of the picture. But anyway, fun to meet Dave Samuels. Stomp, of course, saw them a million times. Very fun to watch, athletic, rhythmic. Saw them in Atlanta, saw them everywhere, a bunch of times. Here's just one of the tickets. Again, here's another one. This one looks at the Fox Theater, so ticket prices are starting to get a little higher here. So, let's see. Wynton Marsalis. Got to see Wynton and looked at, even on the ticket, I, talked to the drummer and shook the hand and met the bassist, who I found out later, he was only age 17, was CHARNETT MOFFETT, who ends up having his own albums and just a great bass player. But he got snapped up by Wynton when he was a kid and on tour. And check out this ticket price of $12. But anyway, that was at the Blue Note. And let's see, I believe that was, I want to say, in Atlanta. There is a Blue Note, of course, in New York, but I can't recall if that's where I saw him or not. But I do remember being outside in the back, in the dark, where I met CHARNETT MOFFETT, because the band was like, after the show, wherever club this was, they were all, I don't remember anybody smoking or anything like that, but for some reason they were all standing around back and waiting probably for people to leave. And I just went over and started talking to them. So I can't remember, I was with a friend. I can't remember what the friend played, but we were like, hey, let's just go say hi. I mean, they don't want to talk, they'll shoo us away. But he talked for quite a while and was a super nice guy. And I can't remember his background, but he was going to school for music and then just got asked to go on the road with Wynton, and instead of telling Wynton no and keeping going with school, he's like, heck yeah, and so he went on the road, and I don't think he ever finished wherever he was, but he went on to have, and still has, I believe, a successful career. The Santana percussionist. So I love this because here's the picture of when I saw him in the autograph, and the picture of when I saw Raul and his autograph. This is what they look like more now, and they're still playing with Santana. And so Santana's, again, one of those bands that has great horns, great rhythmic stuff, great percussion. And so anyway, I got to see them at a clinic. I don't think I ever got to see them live playing, and I've missed them a bunch of times. Like, they were in Vegas at the House of Blues, and it seems like I just never have been able to go see them. And I remember my drum teacher pushing them on me a long time ago, before I knew who they were or whatever. He's like, you got to listen to this, you got to get the Santana album, you got to get the Mahavishnu Orchestra album. He would turn me on to different groups that I wouldn't have discovered on my own. So I appreciate that he did that for me and stretched me and made me try different things. Okay, so this gentleman, Bob Gatson, is still around. I saw him at a clinic, and I believe it was somewhere affiliated maybe with PASIC. And he's just a drummer guy, and I can't tell you a whole bunch about him, but I know that I met him and I enjoyed his clinic, and he's still drumming because I looked him up, and he's still around doing clinics and things like that, educational sorts of things. This gentleman, so this is Walfredo Reyes Sr., and he's a very famous percussionist, played with a lot of different people. Here's what he looked like at the clinic that I saw him. Here he's still playing. His son is Alfredo Reyes Jr., and he's a very famous percussionist too. So, percussion comes in all forms. We've talked about Alex Acuna, or he might be coming up pretty soon here. I know we've done him as drummer of the week, but just all these great supporting percussionists that don't get a lot of credit. They're just in the back doing all this great stuff and not always getting a lot of recognition, but they play with everybody. The great percussionists, they get called, and they're on everybody's album. If there's a percussionist, these are the folks that get called. Stefan Harris, got to meet him before. He's a famous vibraphonist, got a great band, saw him at a PASIC function. And not too many years ago, gosh, I guess maybe 10 or 15 now, When I say not too many years ago, that's what I mean. Probably mid 2000s, 2007, somewhere in there. Um, in his band is, and I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, TERREON GULLY, I believe, but he was the drummer playing in Stefan Harris's band. Great drummer, still around, doing lots of stuff. And so here's his autograph from, met a lot of these folks at PASIC, Progressive Arts Society Conference, where you just get exposure. You know, you pass them in the hallway. In the conference, you know, they attend each other's, support each other. That's the cool thing. In the audience are all these other drummers, you know, and it's got to be terrifying performing there because, you know, it's your peers and it's like all these other, it's not just random people. These are a whole audience of drummers, you know, so it's really awesome. So you see everybody everywhere. So Chick Corea, we lost Chick not that long ago. I actually got to meet him, go in the back, meet his band. This was in Denver at the Roxy Theater, and very nice guy, really interesting guy. Here's some, let's see, what do I have here? He was with Paco de Lucia, who's a famous guitar player who does all this amazing Spanish flamenco kind of stuff. So anyway, Chick Corea, you know, just an amazing musician. Everybody who was anybody played with Chick Corea. Weckl was with Chick Corea, a number of other great people. So unfortunate we're starting to have these guys sort of drop off the map. Here's another one. I saw him in Connecticut when I was up in Connecticut. He was with Frank Gambale, or Gambale, I'm not sure how he prefers it. Eric Marienthal on sax, John Patitucci, you know, I mean, good golly. And this was at a really cool theater. I think it's called like Toad's something or other. It's famous in near Yale, and it was a small little club. Look at that price, $13.50. That was in 1990. Toad's something. But it's famous in New Haven, and got to see him then, got to see him multiple times in multiple cities, different places. So Joe CALATO of Regal Tip, I keep looking him up, and I believe he's still alive. He's got to be over 100. Hi, Karen. He didn't really spell my name right. Joe CALATO. I've been playing Regal Tip since I was a kid. It's my favorite stick, and I can't get them anymore. I have a few left, and they're breaking. And when they break, it's just like, oh, it's like I'm losing a child. And then it goes in the vase of sticks. But I only have a few left. But they're still making sticks, apparently, but I just can't seem to get them. I play 5A Regal Tip. I have ever since. I don't play the one that looks like this. This was something he had come out with. I don't think it ever really took off all that much, but I just love Regal Tip 5As. And so, Joe, come on. Send me some sticks. Endorse me, something. I can't, I've tried everybody's sticks and I like yours the best. Beverly Guitar Watkins. So this was a lady I was fortunate enough to meet and play with in Atlanta numerous times at this function called Girls Rock Camp, where girls got to come in for a summer camp 1 week. It's a day camp. They come in the morning, they go home in the afternoon, and all day long they learn an instrument, and your instrument choices are drums, guitar, bass, or vocals. You form a band. They buddy you up randomly. So, and these are kids like 12 to maybe 18, something like that. And so by the end of the week, they get to perform at like the Variety Playhouse with a packed audience with their band that they name, with an original song that they create. And the whole week, they have like classes where they go like for an hour, they would come to the drum class and I would teach them basic drum, the drummers would. So you'd have like, let's say there's 40 girls in the camp, which is going to be maybe 10 bands or something like that. All the drummers, the 10 drummers would come and do every day an hour. And then they would go to their next class where it would be like, they would be with each other and they would develop their lyrics. And in a week, they performed their original song either at Eddie's Attic or the Variety Playhouse. We did the same thing with Ladies Rock Camp over a weekend, a 3-day weekend. Ladies would come in, no experience, never played anything, and the money that they pay to do this, the ladies goes to supporting the kids. And so it's just like, it's like a fundraiser that you get to pay to do, but like you get something out of it because they get to perform, and it's super fun. And I met some really amazing, cool people. And so we were called the teachers band. So we were all the teachers. So all these different people taught different instruments. And so we would always, at the one of the shows or one of the lunchtime, they always had a concert at lunchtime during the week, Monday through Friday, usually Friday. We would perform, the teachers would perform for the students, and we would always get to perform with Beverly Guitar Watkins, who has a really long history and was very under recognized, unfortunately, of when she grew up. And but she just died not that long ago, and was an amazing role model, and she could still kick it, and was so much fun to play with. And she would do this thing where she'd take her guitar and play it behind her head. Oh, I see Barb has joined us. Woo! And so here's the teachers band with Beverly Guitar Watkins. Here's another year with her. Here's her doing her guitar thing. She would literally have it behind her head, and she'd be just rocking out. And she was in her 80s, which was just so awesome. So we had a lot of fun getting to meet and hang out with her. Here's another year. I think this might have been one of the last years. And so blues, really awesome blues. This gentleman, actually met him at some kind of I think a drum clinic, and his name is Keith, and I think he pronounces his name Thibodeau, but I'm not sure. He's Little Ricky. He played Little Ricky in the Lucy show. So here he is. When he was a kid, he pretended he was, well, he performed. He would, he drummed. Here he is drumming. Well, he grew up. I believe he still drums. And anyway, so Little Ricky, the drummer, didn't really belong to Lucy and Desi. He was an actor. And
Oh, I thought he was. I'm disillusioned now.
I don't think so. I think I think there might have been a Little Ricky, but it wasn't him. I'm pretty sure. I'll have to double check that, but I know this guy's name was Keith Thibodeau, and he played Little Ricky, but I think everybody thought he was Little Ricky. So we can double check that, but I'm pretty sure he's not.
And I've been here for a while. I just can't figure out this video thing. So I've been here.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad you're here. John Beck. So I just cut and pasted this. He's got a long history in education. He played he's most notably known for Eastman School of Music, and got to meet him again probably at a PASIC clinic. He's a very famous timpanist. Very well known in music education, and Eastman was one of the schools. Classically, if you were a percussionist who want to study classical, Eastman is a good school to go to. If you want more marching or more jazz, North Texas State. Each school kind of has, you go for the person that is the teacher there and whatever they do. And usually, in percussion, we've talked about this before, you're not going to be a world-class percussionist and a world-class jazz person and a world-class, you're usually peg-holed in one area. So like you're the classical person and that's what you do. You know a little bit about marching and jazz, but that's your thing, is timpani. And somebody else is going to be like the marching, rudimental snare, tenors, totally different. Or you're the jazz person, and so you attract kids that are going to schools. They're going to go to the school for their thing. Like if you play marimba and you're like one of the best, they're going to go to your school. So anyway, he's known for really more legit classical percussion. So people who want to play in symphonies for the rest of their life, or orchestras. If you want to play the rudimental thing or the jazz thing, you're going to go to a different place. So Omar Hakim. So also got to meet him at a PASIC function. Here he is. I actually had to pull out, this was fun for me because I was like, I know I have a poster that he signed and I don't have any room to put it in here. I'm gonna have to start putting stuff on the ceiling in here. But I pulled out the poster. I was like, I gotta find that poster. So I found it. To Karen, good luck in your new studio. Well, it wasn't this studio, and it wasn't even my last studio. I think it was the studio before. I mean, it was a long time ago that I told him, I happened to mention to him, I'm building a new music studio in my house. And And he wrote that on there. So it's kind of funny that it still applies because, this one's new too. And he's played with a lot of different people, and it was just a very nice, gracious. He does a lot of jazz fusion, that kind of stuff. Keith Carlock, this was somebody that I didn't really know that much about. I didn't follow him all that much, but he's very well known. And that's the thing about going to some of these functions is you get turned on to new people that you don't know anything about. And then when you go back, you're like, oh, I've heard all their stuff. I've heard that before in their bands. I didn't know they played with so-and-so. So he did a really great, he played with Sting, he played with Steely Dan, he's played with a bunch of different people. He's still around. I think I might have tried to find, here's a more updated picture of the different groups that he's played with. Back in 2009, he was the Modern Drummer, best pop fusion. You can just see these very versatile studio musician, played with a lot of different people. Now this is an interesting one. Jim Chapin. So Jim Chapin wrote this book, and this, when I was growing up, it was the hardest book. When you graduate from this book, there are no more books. At that time, there were like you're done. They bless you and you go off. And this book was hard. I remember doing this book in middle school and early high school, and it was a beast. Back then. I think now if I went to it, it wouldn't be so terrible. But when I was a kid, it was just mind blowing. And every week was just like I was going to get creamed at my lesson. And I was doing my best. And my teacher, pushed me, but didn't kill my spirit or anything. But I remember this book was hard at the time. And, here I got to finally meet Jim Chapin. He was quite a bit older. You can see his writing here. When I finally got to meet him before he died in 2009. I think I might have met him in the 90s at some point. I can't even remember where. I think it was one of these, again, a music store brings in somebody. They call it a drum clinic. All the drummers in town go to it and learn and listen. And Jim Chapin was, in my opinion, not a fantastic drummer, but he was a great educator, and he was way ahead of his time. So the stuff he was writing was killer hard and different than, a lot of bebop and things like that. It was fast. And so anyway, there are other books now. There's lots and lots of books that will challenge people. But this one was the one. Look at that price, $6. This is the torture book. I called it the blue book. When my students came, I'm like, you're almost ready for the blue book. And they'd just be like, oh. Then they get the blue book and they're like, oh my God, what did I get into? It had red spirals on the side. Of course, none of my books have the cover attached anymore. So I always call it, the orange book or the red book. Did you bring your yellow book today? To all my students, but they do have names, and I never called it the Advanced Techniques for the Modern Drummer. I called it the blue book. And most of the time it didn't have its cover. At least mine never did, because they always were, had been utilized. And so the covers came off pretty easily. So I never had the cover on the book. Half of my books that I recently went through and cataloged, they got the cover and then they got the book. And none of them are connected. So it's kind of funny.
Well, if that was volume 1, what was volume 2 like?
Well, does it say that volume 1? Oh, it does. I don't know that he ever finished it. That's a good question. I'm going to have to go back and research. He might have started it and it was manuscript, but I don't know that it was ever published, quite honestly, because I'm going to write a note and try to look that up, because if there is one, oh my gosh, I need to get it. I've still not completed I'm not fully blessed, but I'm going to go back and look, because my understanding was back then that there wasn't one yet. It was coming. I think he wrote that in hopes of there's going to be another one, but I don't know that the other one ever made it. I think it ended up being written, and I don't know that it was ever published, but that's a good question. Thank you. I'm going to look that up. And then you mentioned there was something else we got to look up, Little Ricky. I'm got to go and make sure that I'm telling these stories accurately. I'll double check on that. So Jake Hanna was a very famous jazz drummer, and I got to meet him before he died. Here he is. And here, is him in the older years. Here's him in the younger years. I think I have a different picture of, so he played with Maynard Ferguson, Woody Herman's orchestra. he was played behind Judy Garland. He did a lot of studio work. He was the drummer for the big band of the Merv Griffin show. So he was around, and but nobody probably knew his name. If I mentioned him to somebody on the street, nobody would know him, but you've heard of all these other people. So the drummers are important and supporting, and often didn't get a lot of recognition. So but he was very instrumental in lots of stuff that went on in early drumming. Oh, the roll-off guys, I had to put them in here. So every time I would see them, they always had these crazy outfits, and I'd always get my picture taken with them. And this is actually a very famous composer. He just happened to be at the booth when I was there getting my picture, and I'm like, come on in here. Then I had to go look him up, figure out who he was. But he was there a lot of times in the booth, whoever's promoting their most recent thing that they've written, they've composed, or book. These guys really revolutionized. Let's talk about drum books. There weren't a lot of drum books when I was coming up. And they have, we've all done all their stuff and listened to all their stuff, but they write percussion ensemble stuff, and they get others that publish with them that write, marching stuff, cadences for marching band, entire programs, very percussion based. And so I love going to their booth and perusing around. And I started categorizing my little library, and I have tons of their stuff. Someday it's going to get donated to some school. But and each one of these things is like $30 or $40. I mean, so it's not cheap to buy something for your, this is meant to be sold to band directors. And these are the guys that every year would have their CD, and they were ingenious in that you would want to listen to that CD because, think about a band director. It's like, oh gosh, here's the marching season's coming. What are we going to do next year or this year? They start planning in the spring. And all these different publishing companies would start sending them their music, and, just to sit there painfully and listen to all these boring CDs to figure out which one do I want to do with my kids this year. You wanted this CD. When it arrived, you couldn't wait to put it in and listen to it because it was hilarious. And I've saved all of them. And I even listened to them just for fun. But they always did like a theme, like it would be like, oh, we're at the beach. And then they would work the title of the different compositions they're trying to sell into the scenario. And they would just let you listen to a snippet of it. And then if you liked it, you could go listen to the real boring long one to determine which one you wanted. But it was a great way to pitch to band directors, and they were very successful. And being zany like this and funny in all their promotional materials was what got them to be so popular, because a lot of people were pitching this stuff, but nobody was listening to it or buying it because it was just painful, and this was fun. So like I always had to get a picture taken with Chris and Chris. So AKIRA Jimbo, let's see how much time we've still got. Oh yeah, we still got time. So AKIRA Jimbo, I got to see him at a drum clinic. I'd never heard of him before, but I was like, hey, there's a drum clinic. I don't know who it is, but somebody good, I'm going. $5, of course I'm gonna go. And this was in a music store in Atlanta, and got to get a poster with him. He was promoting this drum. This drum has wooden hoops, which is very unusual. This gentleman is from Japan. He was self-taught. There were no drum books. I remember him saying he taught himself. This is pre-internet, so he didn't have YouTube videos. He said he couldn't speak English very well, but what he said was, no drum book, no drum teacher. And I'm like, wow, to get that good with no drum book and no drum teacher. And he had this very unique style where he would have a hybrid drum set, and this was kind of a while back before electronics was really popular. So his drum set was acoustic and it was electronic, and he was a one-man band. So he'd hit a pad and it would trigger something that he would have pre-programmed that was like a band, and then he would be playing along with it, and then he would have to hit the pad every so often to get it to cycle, and he would hit different pads at different times, and he was like an orchestra. And it was awesome because he was so creative. He didn't need anybody else. He practiced all day long and basically would just develop this whole cool. And we've talked about this before. When people don't have a drum book or a drum teacher, they kind of have their own very unique take on things that none of us would have figured out because we're very conditioned, like this is how you do it. This, it's like a recipe. This is how you do it. It's got flour, it's got sugar, it's got all these different things. The people who come up with these amazing new cool things don't have that. So they're just like, oh, I think I've got, such and such I'll throw in today. And then they develop this amazing thing. So it's kind of really cool to have exposure to people who haven't been conditioned and standardized and are thinking way outside the box because they don't know anything else. We've talked about people who developed, their playing style because most of us play right hand crossed over left hand. There's people that play open style. They're playing their left hand on the hi-hat all the time, even though they're a right-handed person, because they were just like, well, I've got this drum set. Like, to them, it didn't make sense to do this. And most normal people wouldn't have done that. It's like, well, why would I cross over like that? When my left hand's like, I guess this is how you do it. And they just learned that way. And the rest of us are like, oh my gosh, wow, you're doing stuff that sounds different and looks different. And so I have to credit all these folks that, stumble upon, in history, penicillin, all the things that got stumbled upon became, major things, or not all of them, but many of them were mistakes. So Buddy Rich, of course I had to put Buddy in here. So here's some pictures of Buddy as a kid. Golly, he's not even tall enough to be over the top of that bass drum. Of course, the bass drums were bigger then and were set up very different. Here's my famous Buddy Rich ticket, $6 with his signature. And I got to go, this was at a dinner club. I was the only kid there with my dad. Everybody else was dressed up all fancy on dates. And my dad and I went, and I, like no other kids were there because I guess no other kids knew about Buddy Rich, and I did. And I was like, I want to go see Buddy Rich, and my dad must have slipped somebody some money because we ended up down in the, at the end of the show. This was a restaurant where you have dinner and you listen to the show. And at the end, we ended up walking down these stairs. It was like a dungeon, we walked down these scary stairs in through the wine cellar, I think is what it was. And all of a sudden there's the room with the band, and Buddy is kicking back with his champagne glass with milk in it. And he asked for his special pen, and he was really nice to me. You could tell he was, kind of mean to his band, but he was nice to me. He signed it. He didn't roll his eyes having this young girl. So I thought that was pretty cool that he accepted me and was nice to me and talked to me and everything. And back then we didn't take pictures with people. We didn't have cell phones or any of that. So I didn't get a picture with him, but I got his autograph and I got to talk to him, shake his hand, and kind of meet his band. They were all mingling about eating or whatever after the show. So anyway, I met him another time too, right outside of his tour bus. He was getting on the tour bus, and I just talked to him for a minute and met some of his band. I can't remember. I don't think he was in a hurry, and I don't think I was prepared. And so anyway, got to say hi and, enjoyed your show or whatever. But I have friends that friends of friends who actually did get to tour with him in the band playing different instruments. And he was rough. He would stop the bus in the middle of Iowa and kick somebody off, if he didn't like something, and just get off the bus in the middle of a cornfield. And I also heard some tapes that somebody, recorded him when he didn't know he was being recorded, of him chewing the band out, and he used a lot of bad words, and he was pretty rough. But, he was demanding perfection, and he was a very unique character, but he definitely could play, and played, very few people play like Buddy. So here's his band. So this was fun for me to look up some of these people. First of all, I have to figure out what the signature says. And then I look to go who was in Buddy's band at this time period, see the names, and see if I could figure it out. few of them I figured out. So here's one guy I figured out. Oh, I didn't even write his name down here. I believe this one was John Marshall. Luckily, he put a little trumpet here, so I knew he probably played trumpet. This guy played, Mike Campbell played alto. I looked him up, I couldn't find him. I think this is Dean Pratt. Looks like he played maybe trumpet or trombone. This one wrote trombone, Dale Kirkland. And this one is keys. Can't really tell what his name was, but anyway, I still have to do a little research and see if I can find these guys. I found some of them, but they didn't have pictures or they didn't really say too much. All of them still play, all of them still teach. They're all around, or mainly, most of them, I found a few of them, but they didn't have anything. They weren't on Wikipedia. I just found like they had a website and they're still teaching or whatever. So, all these people, you don't just like play for Buddy and then never play again, like they're still doing something in music, teaching or something. So that was fun for me. I did find one guy. Here's the most recent picture I could find of him. We'll do a couple more because it's almost time to end. Stanton Moore. So saw him at a drum clinic. Actually, I had forgotten I had his autograph. And then I was like, oh gosh, I do have his autograph. Because I was trying to remember. It was not a memorable encounter because most of the time I can remember where it was, how it was, what we talked about. I just think it was, he just signed it. And I don't remember really having a big interaction with him, but it wasn't that long ago. So I think it was, he wrote Stay Funky. And that's Stanton Moore. He does the New Orleans style. He plays in New Orleans mainly. And he's got a really cool, interesting New Orleans style drumming. He does a lot on his, kind of like the Bo Diddley, what we all talked about a while back. So he is noted for that and has books written for that. And he during COVID actually did some live streams that I actually got on and got to listen in. And there was only like 100 people on there, listening in. It was live. And, it would pop up in my Facebook, hey, Stanton Moore is streaming live. Do you want to watch? Oh, yeah, I want to watch, of course. And I would pop in and listen to a little bit of it. I didn't get a chance to really interact with him that way, but anyway, Stanton Moore. Al Jarreau. Oh, this is going to be the one to end on. So, golly, Al Jarreau. I loved Al Jarreau. He's died not that long ago. I saw him a million times everywhere I could. I met him once, got his autograph, and he used his voice like an instrument, and I just... golly, Al Jarreau, he's one of the few vocalists I really, really, really like. And he always had a great band. And here's the autograph. It's a big poster board. I used to have it hanging in my old studio. And it's the size of an album. On the other side, I think, is the album that he was promoting at the time, this one. You can see little tack holes because I had it hanging in my studio, my last studio. I got to do something nice with this. But anyway... golly, Al Jarreau, that's probably a good one to end on. And then we'll start and do next week with Dot Cero, so a local band. So I'm going to end the show and stop sharing. So, let's see. What questions do you all have, or comments or suggestions?
I want to know what the Red Rock theater or amphitheater, what was that like?
Oh my gosh. So I just was there this summer 3 times. One with Tower of Power, one with Bonnie Raitt, and one with someone else. A group called Lettuce. They were with Tower of Power. And I went one other time. I can't remember who. And I've also gone there in December, coming up on the solstice. A whole bunch of drummers congregate there, and we watch the sun come up, and we play the sun coming up. But it is an outdoor amphitheater. It is surrounded by natural red rocks. You can see Denver in the background. There are deer around you. It is the most spectacular amphitheater. And I grew up, that was my default stadium. Like, I didn't grow up going to concerts in Phillips Arena. I grew up going to Red Rocks, where you could pack a lunch, hang out for the day, play Frisbee. It's kind of general admission. Now they kind of have different sections, but it only holds about 5,000-6,000 people. and it's super intimate. And I saw Brandy Carlisle there recently, which was amazing. And another person that I was not turned on to before, but now I totally follow. It was a great band, a great experience, and you just feel like you're right there. The sound is amazing and it's beautiful. There's a full moon, there's the stars, and you're out in Colorado. And the people who play there say it's their favorite. And, they probably say that to a lot of places, but I really believe it is. For a lot of them, it's magical. And so it's just, there's nothing like Red Rocks. If you get a chance in your life to go to a concert or even go visit during the day and walk around, they have a place where you can go in and see all the concerts they've had over the years. 1985, who was here? And then I can go and say, oh, I was at that one. I was at that one. It's kind of neat. They have a little museum, and I think it's pretty much free. You can just go in there and walk around. So I think we probably have to end. I hope that, this is recording. It's going somewhere. I hope it's going somewhere we can get it back. And so I plan to see you guys next week for part 3 of autographs, concert tickets, and pictures. Have a great week and weekend. Stay warm, and I will see you next time. Bye, everybody.